So warm greetings for our meditation session together. And to evoke an image for the meditation, for the kind of presence and mindfulness that is possible with mindfulness meditation. And also a little bit of an introduction to the theme of the Eightfold Path. Imagine that you're going to visit a very wise person who you're confident has really important things to tell you. The person's old and sits quietly in some comfortable chair and doesn't say much. And when the person does speak, speaks quietly. And it's clear that as you approach and sit with this person, that you have to offer your full attention to the person. You don't know when the person will speak, and the person probably won't say much and won't say it repeatedly. And the person really needs to feel that you're really there and present and attentive and fully present for the encounter. And then at a time when you are really present, really there, then to your surprise the person says something to you. Some piece of wisdom, a wisdom maybe even that sets you free of some of your suffering. So the wise person in this allegory is yourself. And the person visiting the wise person is yourself. That in mindfulness meditation, we're visiting ourselves, we're coming to meet ourselves, and to offer a very full, present moment attention to really be able to listen, to feel, to sense, to experience what is really here. And we don't know when the wisdom will come. We don't know how quietly it'll be spoken or revealed. But what we do know is that we have to be present. We can't be wandering off, lost in fantasies and thoughts. But we bring a kind of reverence, a kind of care, a kind of love to really encountering, really feeling and sensing and being intimate with our lived experience, our embodied experience. It's best not to sit waiting for the wisdom to come, because waiting interferes with the full attention. And it's best not to try too hard, because that interferes with the fullness of attention. But here we sit to meet ourselves, and there definitely is wisdom to be found here in yourself. You are both a wise person and the visitor. And we begin by being the visitor, and the wisdom comes in its own time. So to begin, taking a posture that is, for you, is attentive. And for many people, that means to sit up a little straighter, almost as if you're going to be attentive with your whole torso. And perhaps there's a way of rotating your head, neck a little bit, or tilting your head but sideways, rocking it sideways back and forth. And then slowing down and seeing if you can find a way in which the head, the neck, feels aligned. So the vertebrae in your neck participate in feeling a little bit alert, And one way to do that is to lift up the top back of your head just a teeny bit to create a little bit more space between the last vertebrae and the skull. Another way of saying that is to tip your chin down slightly. Tuck it in and down. And gently closing your eyes. And with care, maybe even love, taking a few slower, longer, deeper breaths. As if each breath is to be savored, enjoyed. Breathing in deeply and filling the torso, the lungs with air. Feeling the torso expand, the rib cage stretch. Maybe even a movement of lifting in the shoulders. Maybe with a deep in-breath, there's even some feeling of expansion in the back rib cage. And then as you exhale, a long, slow, gentle exhale. Almost as if you exhale with a feeling that could be expressed in the sound ah, here. And as you exhale, to let something, anything that you find in your torso, to relax and to settle. Maybe even allowing the settling of your weight of the torso, so there's settles downwards into the pelvic area. And then letting your breathing return to normal. And part of a useful, skillful attention is to relax. Tension interferes with open, settled attention. So to relax what's possible to relax, what's possible easily. Maybe as you exhale to soften the muscles of the face. Maybe as you exhale to soften the shoulders, relax, release the shoulders. Perhaps releasing down through the arms as well. And then exhaling, softening the belly. Maybe the belly will hang forward and down. And perhaps also as a way of softening and relaxing in the chest. Something can release, let go. And some people find it useful to also relax the brain, or relax whatever tension or pressure that's felt around the forehead, the temples, behind the forehead, in the general area where the brain is. Maybe softening, relaxing. Maybe the image of spreading the mind wide, like a wide, still lake, where the waves of the lake settle and get quiet. So allowing the mind to get quieter and quieter. And then to continue this process of meeting yourself as if you're coming to meet a wise person. Lovingly become aware of your breathing. Become aware of how the body experiences breathing. And the life-giving process of the body, taking in air, exhaling. The breathing is a doorway to a deeper and deeper connection to oneself. The experience of breathing is always in the present moment. And the task is to devote the mind to be in the present moment too. One way to do that is to be in harmony with the breathing, to be aligned, to be intimate with the body breathing. Offering the kind, careful, devoted attention that you need for attending, being with a wise person. Here, one breath at a time. Attention is always being given to something. Sometimes it's given up, surrendered to distractions. And sometimes it's given over to, offered to, being present for our lived experience. To really be cognizant, to recognize, to know this is happening here. To be here for yourself, your lived experience, body, breath, feelings, mind, just here, as if you're going to meet the wisdom that's here as well. then coming to the end of this sitting, once again imagine that what it would be like for you, how you would approach a person who you respected a lot for their wisdom and their compassion, and you had a chance to sit with them, and someone maybe who was old or very quiet, where it made sense for you to offer your full attention and care and a certain kind of respect that yes, this is a wise person. And as I said in the meditation, to imagine that that person, the wise person, is you. And how would you approach yourself? How would you meet yourself? And now as we come to the end of the sitting, how maybe, just maybe, it's wise to approach everyone that you meet as if they too are wise. That if you bring kind, respectful attention, to really be present, to listen fully, to get to know someone fully, in that kind of attention that you bring, maybe there's a chance that that person's wisdom can surface, that person's goodness. If we see people as wise and good, even if some of their behavior is otherwise, maybe we're helping their wisdom, their goodness to come forth. And so may it be that what we learn about how we can meet ourselves with respect and attention is something we then can use to meet others with respect and attention. And may it be that whenever we meditate, that at the end of the meditation we reflect a little bit about how the meditation can support the world around us. And it isn't that we're giving up benefiting ourselves, but we benefit ourselves greatly when we turn the benefits of meditation around and offer it to others. It's a way of strengthening and developing what has begun in meditation, and what we strengthen and develop in the world with others will come back and support you the next time you meditate. May this practice we do bring happiness and welfare and safety and freedom to others. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. And may all beings be free. So greetings again, and welcome to this second talk on the Eightfold Path. And this will continue to be an introductory talk, and then tomorrow I'll start on the first factor of the path. And as a way of introducing it, I also want to say briefly the essence of the first factor of the path. And that has to do with understanding suffering. To really understand the arising, the appearance of suffering, the cessation of suffering, to really understand how to be free of suffering. And so the Eightfold Path is a path that is walked in relationship to this freedom of suffering. And there's two general ways that I talked about yesterday, to say it a different way, in which the Eightfold Path exists for people. One is, it's the path that people who are awakened walk. And second, it's the path people on the way to awakening walk. And awakening or enlightenment are kind of vague terms, but the essence of it is this freedom from suffering. Those who are free from suffering walk this path. Those who are on their way to freedom walk this path. It's the same path, but in one, it's kind of fully developed in the awakened ones, and those on the way to awakening, to freedom from suffering, it's being cultivated and developed and grown further. But what's interesting about this is that it's the same path, and it points to a principle that, for me, is very important, and I think something very important for me to try to convey as a teacher, is that it's important not to set up too strong of a separation between where we're going in practice, in a sense, the freedom from suffering, to be awake or enlightened, and the practice along that way. And how not to make a strong separation is to understand something about the qualities of a heart, a mind that's free of suffering, and to have those qualities, practice those qualities as we walk the path, to have aspects of awakening in how we practice, even as a beginner. And so the means, the practice, the means, should contain a bit of the goal. And the means doesn't justify the goal. The goal informs the means, how we practice. And so to give you a little different example, to be generous, one practices generosity. To be kind, one practices kindness. The goal is to be generous, and how that's done is by being generous. The goal is to be kind, we practice it to be kind. The goal is to become the Eightfold Path. Someone who's fully awakened is said to become the Eightfold Path, to be endowed with the Eightfold Path, who have really entered into the Eightfold Path. The way to become such a person is to practice the Eightfold Path. To say this a different way, the freedom from suffering is synonymous with the freedom from clinging. Clinging is the source, the cause, the condition for suffering. Without that clinging, the suffering that Buddhism wants to address will not exist. The suffering, the dukkha that Buddhism addresses, it is that which arises from clinging. Some popular common English, we might refer to different kinds of pain, emotional pain, as suffering. And some of them that doesn't arise from clinging would not be, a liberated person would feel as well. But really the clinging-based suffering. And so the freedom from clinging is what an enlightened person has. As we practice the path of awakening, we want to bring that sense of non-clinging in the practice itself. All along the way, we want to practice non-clinging. And so we want to not cling to Buddhism. not cling to the Eightfold Path, not cling to the different factors of the Eightfold Path. We practice them with devotion, with dedication, but to hold them lightly and openly, and not to live with kind of strong, compulsive desire around it, expectation, demands, not a lot of comparative thinking, someone else is further in the path than me, not a lot of ego involved, like look at me, I'm the great one who's on the Eightfold Path. All those represents forms of clinging. So to be sensitive all along, from being a beginner all the way, to the role that clinging has in our suffering, and to begin practicing non-clinging, even if it's a modicum of it from the very beginning. And it might be, I don't know if it's simple, but it includes not clinging in relationship to how we cling. Not having strong desire, not being caught up in desires when we're craving, like wanting it away, wanting not to show it to people that we have this way. To not have aversion to aversion. So there's this kind of art of cultivating awareness that lets things be, but doesn't feed them or fuel them. And that's the task of non-clinging. The Eightfold Path, how an enlightened person walks, is how someone walks who has no clinging. For someone who is on the path to awakening, it's how they cultivate non-clinging. They cultivate it by having what's called right view, right intention, or right consideration, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and right mindfulness, and right concentration. And the word fold in Eightfold Path refers to, it's all one thing that has different folds in it. The more proper translation into English of the Pali is the eight-factored path. It's a singular path, but has all these different aspects. And those aspects live together in harmony together. And it isn't necessarily that we can practice one after the other, but the idea is that they all are expression of the same thing, of non-clinging. And that's kind of part of one of the tasks is to understand how these things are an expression of non-clinging. So these 8 factors of the path, and the word right is used in front of each one. And the Pali word is samma, S-A-M-M, long A, and it's has a number of different meanings. It can also mean complete. So it's the complete view, complete intention or consideration, the complete speech. It can also be harmonious. It's that which is harmonious. But what it's in harmony with, it's in harmony with the other factors, in harmony with non-clinging. I don't know if the Buddha understood the etymology of the word, but the ancient etymology of this word that precedes the Buddha is coming along together. These different factors come along together. This coming along together for the same direction, the same purpose, is kind of the meaning of samma. The word right maybe is a fine translation. I like the translation if we understand right in the sense of using the right tool. You don't want to use a hammer to unscrew a screw. You use a screwdriver. The screwdriver is the right tool. The hammer might be the right tool for nailing in a nail. And so these 8 factors, these 8 sets of practices, are the appropriate tool, the appropriate means for not just becoming awake, becoming enlightened, but rather living a life of awakening. And this is an important distinction. It isn't that Buddhism is about becoming an enlightened person for its own sake. Just become enlightened and live in enlightened retirement. But rather, it's to transform the person to live a life, to walk through life, to live a life that is an expression of freedom, an expression of non-clinging. And it's all of who we are. It's our entire way of being in the world that is changed or becomes in harmony or comes along with non-clinging, with freedom. And so these 8 factors are both practices to do, and they're also wonderful questions, wonderful explorations around the topic of non-clinging. How is it that speech can be informed or can be done without any clinging? How is it that the actions in our world, how we live in the world with our actions, are right actions in the sense that actions without clinging? What does clinging have to do with it? With livelihood, with effort, with mindfulness, right mindfulness. How does that come along? How is that an expression of non-clinging? And how has concentration become an expression of non-clinging? So this idea that the 8 factors of this path are the discovery and the expression of non-clinging. It helps us discover it and helps us to express it, to be it. And how does that work? And why is it that non-clinging is so valuable in this sense? And what is it about non-clinging that should provide these wonderful 8 qualities for a human being? And why should you want it? So the Noble Eightfold Path, the 8-factored path of the noble ones, of the non-clinging ones. So that's the introduction, and tomorrow we'll start with the first factor of the path, a right view, and we'll go from there. Thank you.